Firstly, I guess, and I know you've seen a few of these episodes, how are you keeping? How's the last couple of weeks been?
Grand, yeah. Just kind of, I mean, it's a hard time, but sure, I'm swamped with work, so I probably wouldn't be outside anyway. I'd be a hermit inside anyway, so it's not the worst for
Yeah,
me.
you're busy. So I
Exactly.
want to try cover a couple of different things today if we can, because the last couple of weeks we've spoken to a couple of student ambassadors from all different courses, and as I said, this week is a bit more of a focus on postgrad. But to give a bit of context into the postgrad currently where you are at the moment, maybe just retrace your steps a little bit. You did what in DCU, and then we might talk about the postgrad that you're currently in.
Yeah, so I did the bachelor's in marketing, innovation, and technology. So it was a 4 year degree. So I started back in 2016, and then I did the 2 years of that. I did the 12-month inter-work placement in third year. I did that with ESB. Then I came back for final year, did that, and then I decided then that I would go on and do a master's, and here I am now. So it doesn't really feel like that long, but I suppose when I look back now, a lot has happened.
Just to remind people as well that are watching, there's a Q&A function on the screen. So there are anonymous questions. I won't read out your name. If you have a question as we're talking, pop it in there and I can ask Ciaran, or if it's for me, I can take it myself. So you did your Mint program. I just want to
Yes.
briefly touch on, if I could for a second, just the intra workplace. And because as
Mhm.
the last couple of conversations have gone, we've talked about practical on campus versus off campus. Give us a sense of maybe the placement and then maybe the value for you anyway that you got from it.
Yeah, so I suppose the placement in and of itself is one of the reasons I actually did decide to study in DCU. I think it's really the thing that won me over in the first place. Um, it was a really great learning experience, and the fact that so it was meant to be 12 months, I stayed on then for 14. The fact that you even have that and that it is mandatory as part of your course, it just basically means that unlike a lot of other degrees, you don't have to sort of go out and contact companies yourself. Like they're looking for you, they're looking specifically for students from DCU. So it just makes it really easy in that sense, because you don't actually have to actively go out, go on LinkedIn, go onto all these job sites and just hope that they decide to create an internship program just for you. So these places, they already have internship programs set up, and like I said, it just makes it all that much easier. It was really valuable for me, just in the sense that not only do you get to apply what you are learning in class for 2 years into the real world, but also it just kind of helps with your personal development. I mean, it's going to be the first time for a lot of people that they're in sort of like a professional corporate environment, which presumably they will be in for the rest of their career, if especially if they're doing, say, the likes of a business degree like I am. So it kind of just gets you used to that office environment and sort of how to like even just be professional. I always say that the biggest thing I learned from my intro was how to hold a small talk conversation in an elevator. Like more than anything, that's what I got out of it. And I think it's those sort of skills that you need more than say the actual like say marketing skills that would be expected from me. I think it's the sort of the social skills that you get from it, how to be professional. That's really what you get from it. That's what I got from it anyway.
Yeah, no, and it's a good point to mention because often when people, and I know there's a couple people watching now, when you're looking or you're reading through a prospectus or you're even come to an open day, sometimes you always don't get the full sense. Now we do our best, obviously, to give
Mm.
that sense, but sometimes you don't get the full sense of the range of opportunities and intra. For those that don't or aren't aware, what intra is essentially is just a unit within DCU that supports people that to get workplace and during their program. So that's what we're talking about, I guess, that practical exposure. And again, this is while Ciaran and all the other students are still studying and they come back then they finish their degree program with a little bit more I guess real world experience.
Mhm.
So I do want to talk about the current postgrad that you're in
Yeah.
off the back of marketing, but before that I just want to talk a little bit around why, as to, so some people across the board, not necessarily you, but some people might choose a postgrad to further specialize in an area. Some people might be unsure, but this gives them a year or 2 years maybe to figure that out. For you, why, I guess, postgrad, and why the postgrad that you're in?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people come out of degrees and a lot of bachelors these days, it's almost expected that you would have to do sort of a master's afterwards, especially because they might not be career focused. While the degree that I did is very career focused, you don't need to do a master's afterwards. And the majority of my classmates have gone on and are working straight away. So if there's anyone watching who is interested in the Mint bachelor's degree level 8 and thinks, oh, I'm going to have to do a master's after that. That's 10 grand on top of the already, what is it, 12 grand I'm going to have to pay throughout the years. Like, you don't have to go on and do a master's. It's not a requirement. For me, what made me want to do it was just basically, I was just like, it was around, I'd say, March, April this year. We had just gone into lockdown, and I was just looking at the news. I was looking at how everyone was saying the economy is going to go into a crisis, new recession. And I was just stressed with final year. So I thought the best thing I could do is give the economy some time to recover and also upskill during that time and do something I want to do. I mean, I'm doing this year, and in the long run, it means that I'll be paid more, I'll get more job opportunities, I look more attractive to potential employers. So for me, it was kind of just that thing of making myself look better to the people who are going to be giving me jobs, and kind of learning more, mastering my craft a bit more, and just better understanding marketing as a whole, specifically digital marketing, which is the course I decided to study, the Masters in Science in Digital Marketing in DCU. I thought it was kind of the next step on top of Mint. I mean, Mint has such like a strong focus on digital marketing already as it is, but I thought the Masters would kind of just push me even that bit further.
And out of interest, did your third year undergraduate work placement cross over into the digital space to give you a sense of maybe now that you're at this particular juncture to go, actually, maybe digital marketing might be for me? Or did you get that exposure during your placement?
Not really, to be honest. My placement was not really digital marketing focused. It was more, it wasn't so much towards, say, customers. It was, so my intro was actually internal communications. So I was like doing marketing, but my target audience essentially was the employees in ESB, which there's thousands spread across the country. So it's like you are marketing to thousands of people, and you're basically just communicating changes and stuff to them. And a lot of that was through digital means. I mean, when they're spread across the whole country like they are, we had like internal social media that we communicated through and stuff. But for me, it was more so, before I had decided what I wanted to do and whether or not I wanted to do a master's, I was looking at jobs on LinkedIn, and the majority of sort of like modern day marketing jobs were digital marketing roles. And I just thought that if I want to do stuff like this and I want to have a better chance of getting jobs like that, then I can take this opportunity to upscale and just really make myself look more employable to them.
So your current then, the MSc in digital marketing, is a 1 or a 2 year program?
It's 1 year.
It's a 1 year program, 1 year full time.
Yeah.
So for those that are listening and watching, and maybe, I might like to do that in a couple of years in terms of the space, digital marketing, that is MSc in digital marketing. Give people a sense of what's involved, regards hours, regards subjects, modules that you cover, etc.
Yeah. So usually we would have, I would say, around 10 hours per week of lectures. Every few weeks then we have extra modules, so we could be bumped up to, say, maybe like 16 hours. But it kind of just depends week by week what classes are on. While an undergrad is more so structured in the sense that you always know the amount of hours you're going to have every week. For my master's anyway, you kind of just know the week before what extra classes you're going to have. And I mean, we don't mind this, because you are told, like, right away when you're thinking of doing a master's and you look into it, you're told straight away that, like, you have to give all your time to this. You really have to be committed to it. And it's a lot of commitment, but it is worth it in the long run, or I hope it will be anyway. So yeah, it ranges from about 10 hours to 16 hours. The modules we do then would include, say, like digital marketing mechanics, digital advertising, and we touch on data analytics as well, because that's such an important part of digital marketing, how we can sort of tailor marketing towards people's preferences on social media and on the internet. And we also touch on, say, web design as well. So we get to learn a broad scope, but also it is just very tailored to digital marketing. And that's the thing about masters as well. They're going to be a lot more tailored towards one topic than your undergrad would be, where you would maybe learn a variety of different things and then maybe specialize. The masters is more so, you want to do digital marketing, you want to study, you want a job within that field. So you're committing to that.
You mentioned a little bit around kind of differences between undergrad and postgrad, kind of what's expected and so on. But now that you're sitting in week 5, I think, or week 5 of 10, now that you're sitting here now in your postgrad and haven't had 4 years undergrad, other differences, main differences so far you've experienced?
Well, it's hard to really tell what the difference is. It's hard to tell what's different because it's a master's and what's different because we're in a global pandemic. I mean, I don't know if the case was different. I don't know if I would say be out having a social life. I assume I wouldn't be because the workload is so heavy, but I suppose I'll never know because I never really had that experience of doing lectures from home the whole time. So in terms of workload, so far now we're only 5 weeks into it. It would be just a small step above what final year was for me. And final year was very intense as it is, and this is intense too, but it's manageable, and you kind of going into it what you signed up for. But in terms of the difference between undergrad, it is just that kind of one step above.
Just to remind people that are watching, there is a Q&A function on the screen. If you have a question as we're talking, or you want to ask something a little bit further, please do so. I won't read out your name, so don't worry. And we are here for another 15 or so minutes, and then we will wrap up and then speak to our second guest, Orla. So and that's a very valid point. So currently you're doing your lectures online. Give people a sense of, say, DCU Loop and maybe some of the platform and interaction space that you would have now currently as a student.
Yeah, so we the forms of communication we're using at the moment is really different than when we were an undergrad. So on top of just, say, emails or Loop communication, we also communicate through Slack, which is basically just a website that allows everyone in the course and the lecturers to sort of ask questions so everyone can see them. And that's really helpful. There's a lot of resources that get put up there. If you have a question that regards the whole class, you can put it up there and everyone can see the lecturer's answer. The rest of it's, to be honest, there's not too much of a difference between online lectures and in-person lectures, except you can turn off your camera if you want and be invisible to the class. But we would be very much inclined to turn on our cameras and stuff. But they're still teaching the same stuff. You're still getting the same out of it. The only difference is, instead of doing a half an hour commute in the morning, you do a 2-minute commute to whatever room you're attending the lectures through. So in that sense, there really isn't too much of a difference at all. And I don't feel like I'm getting less than I would be if I was on campus.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And I guess the staff, and I was a student in DCU and an undergrad and a postgrad student in DCU. And again, in my experience, that similar, I guess, world-class kind of teaching, academic exposure experience, irrespective of if it's in the physical environment as such or in the online environment. And obviously we'll hopefully get back to the physical at some point. So if I could just press pause, because I don't know, the people that are watching here, I don't know if they're coming into potentially undergrad and then into postgrad, or maybe they're looking at postgrad. But I just want to take the opportunity maybe to ask about undergrad just for a moment, with regards looking back. And I've asked all the guests and all the students the last few weeks this or a similar question. Looking back, anything you do differently, be it coming in, be it in the course, particularly now at undergrad for the moment?
Anything I do differently? I don't know. I always do say the one thing I would do differently is, I did get very involved socially throughout my time in DCU, but I didn't in first year. It took me a while, because I was very sort of just nervous. I always thought that getting involved in, say, clubs and societies in first year, that they're already established, there's already friendships established, that they won't be welcoming to first year students. And I look back now and I look at the societies that I would be somewhat involved with, and I look at how welcoming they are to first years, and I wish I could go back and say to first year me that, no, go in there, like run for first year rep for these societies if you want to. Like, they're so welcoming, the people are so nice. So I suppose that is the one thing I changed. But at the same time, by the time second year came around, I kind of pushed myself outside of my comfort zone more. So, you know, I got there in the end.
Could I touch on the supports part for the moment? Because whether it's myself and my colleagues in student recruitment, or whether it's student support and development, when you're a current student, and I guess maybe just to touch on this for a moment for those now that are listening, but maybe to get your own insights or your own experience. When you're looking, so your prospective students, we, in terms of my department and our department, are here to help. But that when you are a student, there's plenty of supports there, be it clubs and societies, be it well-being, financial, and so on. Any further insights into that space? So clubs and societies is obviously a massive part, getting involved, personal development, broadening horizons, your networks, opportunities, all sorts of different things. Yeah. But maybe to touch on, or even facilities to that point, doesn't have to be supports, but give people a sense of maybe some of the other supports, facilities that are there outside of the classroom, undergraduate and postgraduate, I guess, as well.
So I suppose the first thing that kind of comes to my head, away from, say, like the clubs and societies social part of it, would just be, I always found it really hard to like study and work from home, which obviously I have no choice in doing now, but the library was like my like go-to place. It was like my first home, and my home was my second home, especially in first, second, and final year up until we went into the lockdown. And in, say, first and second year, I like, my laptop just was awful, like it was trash. So they had like the laptop rental scheme in the library, and they had the hundreds of computers you can work off of. So just that support from an academic side is amazing. Outside of that, say, the support you can get from say clubs and societies as well. So I think a lot of people think maybe like clubs and societies, they might just be the fun side, which they are, but also there's a lot of, especially if you are going in to do, say, a business type of degree, there's a lot of societies such as Enactus, where you are working to like basically start up a startup company, and that like would aid in say like communities. And doing this stuff and being on the committees for these things, they really help your CV in the long run. So you're not just getting your experience from the classroom, you're also building a CV and building networks from outside the classroom, on top of also building a social life with that. So you kind of just get everything blended together into one if you're doing the extracurricular stuff outside the classroom, and it's a great opportunity.
I just want to reflect back. We have about 10 minutes left. And again, just a reminder, if you have a question as we're talking in the last couple of minutes, just pop it in there. As I said, it's anonymous. I just want to reflect back, or maybe jump back to the postgraduate side of things. So you mentioned already employability being more attractive in terms of the job and your future career and so on. Just to mention, and you may or may not have thoughts on this, but just to mention for those that are listening, there is a DCU career server. So be that undergraduate or postgraduate, there is many links, established links with organizations and companies, and there's a unit, or there's a couple of staff members that are employed by DCU in order to support people in terms of transition. Have you used the career service? And if so, your experience or your exposure to that so far?
So I would have used the career service a good bit there in final year before I had decided to do a master's, because it is the sort of the one place where you can get all the information on all the graduate programs that are happening. And for a lot of people finishing their degrees, graduate programs are the way to go. Because you do get to learn so much through them. Now, they're not for everyone, but it is just a host for endless lists of graduate programs that are taking on students, as well as that they have links to jobs abroad. So if you wanted to work outside of Ireland, they also have a lot of resources to help you with that. If I went to them just to like have a look at my CV, I did that before Intra, just to make sure that what I am giving employers is something that they want to see. So having the career service there is really, really helpful. And I do think a lot of people don't know about it. And I mean, it's there to be used and it's there to get the most out of it. So if anyone is watching, and they sort of they even want just advice on how to improve their CV, then 100% get in touch with the career service.
And sometimes it's often them, as you mentioned earlier on, those smaller things that the prospectus mightn't necessarily tell you about or certainly jump off the page to you. And just to your career service point, the head of the career service, Yvonne McLaughlin, and the rest of her team are often fantastic, as well as Claire Bone and student support and various other club and societies activities. We have about 5 minutes left. I just want to kind of finish on or in and around the space of, so you are an undergraduate student, so maybe coming across, or you're in the business school, so coming across information about the MSc in digital marketing wasn't too far away as such. But did you go anywhere else to get more information? Was it readily available? And what did you access in terms of trying to get more information on the MSc?
Yeah, 100%. So I would have known that it existed just through being in the business school, but I wouldn't have known an awful lot about the course itself. And when you're committing to a master's that is so career focused, you're basically saying, listen, I want to do this with my career for a long time. So you don't want to just jump into the deep end and not know what you're getting into. So I think it's so important that there is so much information on the postgrad courses. And thankfully on the DCU website is where I did get the majority of my information. It is really helpful. It tells you, it just breaks down even all the modules. It breaks down what's expected of you, the amount of workload that you're expected to put in. And as well, I also talked to previous students. So I knew previous, or someone who was studying it at the time. She would have graduated last year. She was actually a student ambassador. And she would have given me a lot of information. And again, you're told on the website, you're told when you're talking to the course chairs, you're told when you're talking to current and previous students that it is going to be a difficult time. It is going to be a lot of work, but it's going to absolutely be worth it. And I think no matter where you go to look for information, you're going to be told that, and you're going to be told, well, the DC website at least is where I got my information, was really helpful in just telling me the complete breakdown of it and exactly what is expected of me.
Yeah, and it might be a good point just to mention the DC website obviously is there, and there's lots of modules. You can go into much detail on it, but there is, particularly on the undergraduate, but also postgrad, there's blogs and there's podcasts. There's these conversations we're having each week. There's social media takeovers, a couple other things that I mentioned at the start, at the top of the conversation as well. So for those that maybe get or consume information or like to visit different places, we have, or hopefully have, a range or a suite of options there available. And also we're always at student help at dcu.ie. So if anyone feels like an email is for them,